Picture a sun-drenched, dusty afternoon in Jerusalem, 2,000 years ago. Within the precincts of the majestic temple, amidst cold stone steps and the murmur of prayers, a 12-year-old boy sits among the wisest masters of the law. He shows no fear. His eyes shine with wisdom as he asks questions that leave the white-bearded elders astounded. This is the final, vivid, and striking image that Orthodox history records regarding the childhood of Jesus. And then, the stage lights vanish. The velvet curtain of history descends, sudden and heavy. When the light returns, 18 years have passed. The boy of yesterday is now a man of 30, standing in contemplative silence amidst the waters of the Jordan River, awaiting baptism. He steps from the water, no longer merely the child of Nazareth, but a vessel for a great mission, possessing a profound wisdom, capable of shaking the Roman Empire and altering human consciousness forever. Yet, in this very moment, a vast and haunting question arises in the minds of those who seek the truth. What happened in the space between these 2 points in time? 18 years is an eternity. It is not merely a succession of days on a calendar, but the most critical period for shaping the character of a human being. From a boy of 12 to a man of 30, this is the time when the mind is honed, the worldview is forged, and the soul weathers the collisions of life. Yet the sacred texts remain utterly silent. A silence so profound, it is baffling. There are but a few brief lines stating that he grew in wisdom and favor. Could it truly be so simple? Did a soul of such magnitude merely linger beside a planer and chisel, confined to the narrow streets of his hometown for nearly 2 decades? Or perhaps, behind that veil of silence lies a miraculous journey that history has either accidentally or intentionally forgotten. Let us expand our minds beyond the familiar borders of the arid Palestinian lands. Imagine caravans moving slowly along the Silk Road, carrying not only goods, but also mystical knowledge from the distant East. There is a bold hypothesis, one both poetic and logical, suggesting that during those lost years, the young carpenter undertook a great pilgrimage toward the rising sun. This theory leads us to the lands of India and Tibet, where eternal snow-capped mountains touch the blue sky, and sacred rivers carry the wisdom of the ages. Could it be that the teachings of unconditional love, the renunciation of the ego, and inner peace that Jesus later preached shared a mysterious resonance with the ancient philosophies of Buddhism and Hinduism? Could it be that before he became the Messiah in the eyes of the West, he was a humble traveler, meditating beneath Bodhi trees or debating with sages on the banks of the Ganges? This is not a story meant to challenge faith, but a journey to deepen our understanding of the human aspect of a great historical figure. A man who forever yearned for truth, unbound by the limits of geography or culture. Tonight, together, we will sift through the fragile clues left behind in the dust of time, attempting to fill the void of those 18 mysterious years. Relax your body and let your mind drift along the current of this story toward a journey that may once have been, where East and West met within the heart of one man. Imagine holding in your hands the biography of the most influential figure in human history. Yet as you turn to the most crucial chapters, you discover they are completely blank. This is the profound sense of emptiness we encounter when seeking to understand the life of Jesus between the ages of 12 and 30. 18 long years, a period long enough for a child to mature, to shape their character and worldview. Yet it remains submerged in total silence. History calls these the lost years, a mysterious white space on the pages of time that to this day lacks a satisfying explanation. If we turn to the canonical records, such as the Gospel of Luke, everything is summarized with startling brevity. After the event of the 12-year-old Jesus debating the elders at the temple in Jerusalem, the scriptures offer only a single fleeting sentence. They state that the boy grew, became strong, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Just that one sentence bears the weight of nearly 2 decades. Then, suddenly, the velvet curtain is raised again when he is 30. He appears at the River Jordan, no longer an inquisitive boy, but a fully realized spiritual master, possessing a majestic presence and transcendent wisdom. This transformation lies not merely in age, but in the very core of the ideology he brought forth. Look at the context of Jewish society at that time. It was a religious environment dense with legalism, where every moral action was measured by rigid rules, and justice was executed on the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The scribes and Pharisees of that era taught based on strict observance and the separation of the chosen people. Yet the man who returned after 18 years of silence brought with him a completely different wind, a philosophy that seemed alien to that arid land of old dogmas. He did not preach revenge or retributive justice, but spoke of unconditional love, even for one's enemies. He did not use dry theological arguments, but employed parables, poetic metaphors designed to awaken the intuition of the listener. Most importantly, he spoke of the abandonment of the ego. He taught that whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will find it. These are profound psychological concepts regarding the liberation of the self, about seeking the kingdom of heaven within a quiet heart, rather than in some material realm outside. These ideas of harmony, of vast compassion and letting go, resonate far more closely with the wisdom philosophies of the East than with the Jewish traditions of the time. This leads us to a question of logic and reality. Could a young man growing up in Nazareth, a small, dusty village in Galilee, working as a humble carpenter, develop such globally revolutionary thoughts on his own? Nazareth was not Athens or Rome. It was not a cradle of philosophy or cultural intersection. It was a place of manual labor and mundane worries. Of course, we do not deny innate genius or divine revelation. However, the evolution of human consciousness usually requires a catalytic environment, just as a seed, no matter how perfect, needs the right soil and climate to blossom into a rare flower. Could it be that the spectacular transformation from a law-abiding Jewish boy into a spiritual master embracing all of humanity was the result of a long journey, a voyage to distant lands where spiritual wisdom had flourished brilliantly for millennia? Let us journey back in time to the late autumn of 1887, a moment when the Western world still gazed upon the East with eyes full of curiosity and wonder. Our protagonist is Nicholas Notovich, a Russian journalist with a heart yearning to explore lands where no foot had yet trodden. He undertook an arduous journey to Ladakh, known as Little Tibet, nestled deep within the eternal snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas. During that fateful expedition, an unexpected accident altered the entire course of Notovich's purpose. While traversing treacherous mountain paths, he fell from his horse and suffered a broken leg. This severe injury forced him to seek refuge at the Hemis Monastery, one of the most ancient and solemn Buddhist sanctuaries in the region, to heal. Perhaps it was the arrangement of destiny itself that held him there, compelling a man always in motion to lie still and listen to the sounds of silence. In those long days of recovery, amidst the space faintly scented with incense and the echoing resonance of temple bells, Notovich found the opportunity for profound conversation with the monastery's head abbot. Between stories of culture and philosophy, the old Lama revealed to him the existence of ancient manuscripts guarded secretly within the monastery's library. These texts recorded the life of a saintly figure from a distant land, whom the monks here called by the name Issa. As the yellowed pages of the manuscripts were unfolded, Notovich was struck with astonishment upon recognizing strange similarities. Issa, that name with its Eastern resonance, seemed to be the local appellation for Jesus. According to the ancient translated lines, Issa left his homeland at the age of 14. That was the age when, according to Jewish custom of the time, young men began to consider marriage. But instead of accepting an arranged union, Issa chose the path of departure, following merchant caravans toward the rising sun in search of truth and wisdom. The text describes how the young Issa crossed the region of Sind and ventured deep into the Indian continent. Here he spent many years learning and studying the Vedas, as well as the profound philosophies of Buddhism. But the most remarkable aspect of these records is not merely what he learned, but his attitude toward the social reality of India at that time. Even in those years of youth, Issa revealed a powerful critical mind and boundless compassion. He openly opposed the harsh caste system that bound people to unjust prejudices. He refused to acknowledge that a person's nobility or baseness was determined solely by bloodline. Instead, Issa spent much of his time living among the Sudras, the lowest class in society, those treated as slaves and stripped of all human rights. The image of Issa in the texts at Hemis Monastery emerges as incredibly intimate and full of humanity. He did not preach distant dogmas, but spoke of the equality of human dignity. He healed the sick, shared food with the hungry, and taught them that the divine does not distinguish between rich and poor, but looks only at the purity of the soul. These thoughts, though spoken in distant India, carry the deep spirit that we later see in the teachings of Jesus in his homeland. The story of Notovich's manuscripts opens a captivating hypothesis that the lost years of Jesus were not an empty void. It may have been a long journey of experience of traveling to understand the suffering of humanity and to forge a heart of vast forgiveness before he returned to begin his historic mission. Although the authenticity of this story remains a subject of debate, cannot deny that the image of a young Jesus wandering the East in search of wisdom is a beautiful and persuasive portrait of the maturation of a great soul. Close your eyes and visualize a magnificent convergence. Imagine the cool, refreshing waters of the Jordan River in the arid Middle East, blending into the vast mystical flow of the Ganges in India. This is not merely a geographical meeting, but a metaphor for the greatest philosophical dialogue in human history. When we place the teachings of Jesus beside the ancient philosophies of the East, we suddenly recognize echoes that are surprisingly harmonious, as if two different instruments are playing the same symphony of liberation. The first and perhaps most profound point of contact lies in how we perceive the dwelling place of the divine. For centuries, humanity looked up to the vast sky to find God, or awaited a tangible kingdom to be established on earth. Yet in the book of Luke, Jesus spoke a sentence that shook the consciousness of his contemporaries. He said that the kingdom of heaven is not here or there, but the kingdom of heaven is within you. This affirmation acts like a golden key, opening the door to the inner world, where we need not seek salvation from the outside, but rather turn inward to illuminate ourselves. This sounds strangely familiar when we look to the other shore of Indian philosophy. In Hindu thought, there is an ultimate truth regarding the relationship between the individual soul, Atman, and the cosmic soul, Brahman. They believe that the individual soul is essentially a drop of water separated from the cosmic ocean, and the nature of that drop is the ocean itself. When Jesus said, "The divine lies within each person," he seemed to be reinterpreting this concept of great unity in a new language. It is the language of awakening, telling us that divinity is not far away, but is sleeping within our own hearts, simply waiting to be awakened. Continuing this flow of thought, let us listen to the golden words of the Sermon on the Mount, one of the most brilliant moments in the life of Jesus, when he taught us to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us, or to turn the left cheek when struck on the right. These were not merely social moral rules. This was a revolution in behavioral psychology. This thought carries the breath of ahimsa, the core principle of non-violence found in Buddhism and yoga. Both Jesus and the Buddha saw through a profound psychological law that hatred cannot be ended by hatred only. Love can extinguish hatred. The compassion Jesus spoke of is not weakness or resignation, but a massive inner strength. It is the ability to rise above the petty ego, to understand and forgive. It is a state of consciousness where one attains absolute peace, unmoved by external attacks, a state that the East calls nirvana, or the stillness of the mind. If we look deeper through the lens of depth psychology, we see a spectacular shift in the image of God that Jesus brought forth. In the earlier traditions of the Old Testament, God often appeared as a strict father, a judge ready to punish transgressions with rigid laws. That image reflected human fear and the need for control in the early stages of awareness. But when Jesus appeared, he painted a completely different portrait. The God in his narrative is love and unconditional forgiveness, much like the old father opening his arms to welcome the prodigal son without scrutinizing past sins. This shift from a punishing deity to a source of energy made of love and healing bears the distinct color of Eastern philosophy. Their human suffering is not caused by divine punishment, but by ignorance, because we have not yet realized our true nature. The way Jesus healed the sick and sat to eat with those rejected by society reveals a mindset that transcends dualistic prejudices of right and wrong, clean and unclean. It is the vision of oneness, where all things are equal and contain the seed of holiness. It can be said that during those mysterious hidden years, whether he actually set foot in India or not, his thoughts carried the fragrance of the Eastern lotus, blending with the strength of the Western olive tree. Together, they created a philosophy of soul healing that remains great and resonant to this very day. We often harbor the illusion that the ancient world consisted of isolated islands, where people lived and died confined within the bamboo hedges of their villages or behind narrow city walls. But historical truth paints a completely different picture, one that is far more vivid and expansive. In the 1st century, the era in which Jesus walked the earth, the world was flatter than we imagine. It was an age of connection, where geographical boundaries were blurred by the footsteps of tireless wanderers. Envision the Silk Road of that time. It was not merely a single route, but a vast arterial network pumping vitality across continents. It was the information superhighway of antiquity. On those paths laden with dust and sand, it was not only silk, brocade, or spices that were exchanged, but more importantly, there was an intersection of thought, religion, and philosophy. From the bustling ports of the Mediterranean to the verdant valleys along the banks of the Ganges, the flow of humanity moved constantly, like blood in veins that never cease to pulse. The Roman Empire in the west and the kingdoms of India in the east were by no means strangers to one another. Roman gold coins have been found deep within Indian soil, a testament to a flourishing trade relationship. Merchants, artists, and especially seekers of spiritual truth traversed the gap between these two civilizations as a matter of course. Alexandria in Egypt or Taxila in India were the cultural melting pots of the day, places where a Greek philosopher could sit and debate with a Buddhist monk beneath the shade of a tree. Amidst this dynamic and open historical backdrop, the notion that a wise young Jewish man, carrying profound existential questions about the human condition, might decide to leave his homeland and journey toward the East is entirely within the realm of possibility. Let us perceive Jesus in this moment not through the lens of an omnipotent deity, but as a human being, hungering for knowledge, a sensitive soul, unsatisfied with the stagnant dogmas of his homeland, his gaze forever turned toward the rising sun, whispered to be the cradle of ancient wisdom. Travel in those days, while arduous, was not impossible. Massive camel caravans moved continuously to ensure safety against bandits. A solitary traveler could easily seek sanctuary within such groups. They traversed the desolate deserts of Persia, crossed the snow-capped peaks of Afghanistan, slept beneath a canopy of stars, and listened to tales spun in a myriad of foreign tongues. It was these long, winding journeys that served as the greatest school of all, tempering the mind and expanding the worldview of anyone who undertook them, including Jesus. If we place him within this tapestry, the image of Jesus becomes startlingly intimate and authentic. He appears not as a monarch in a palace, but as an ascetic monk, or as the Indians would say, a sadhu. It is the image of a man with bare feet, calloused by the elements, clad in a simple robe, stained with the dust of the road, a bamboo staff in hand, and carrying within his heart a solitary aspiration to find the path of liberation from human suffering. The undeniable parallels between the wandering ministry of Jesus and the traditions of Eastern monks cannot be ignored. Both renounced material wealth, lived upon the benevolence of others, and regarded the entire world as their home. The history of the first century flung wide the doors for such great odysseys, and perhaps it was upon those windswept miles connecting west and east that the young Jesus gradually crystallized the magnificent ideologies that would later transform the world. He traveled, he witnessed, and he understood that truth belongs to no single land, but resides within the ceaseless journey of the human spirit. As we immerse ourselves in the enchanting hypotheses of Jesus' Eastern journey, where the snowy peaks of the Himalayas seem to whisper ancient tales, it is also the moment we must pause. We must still our minds and view all things under the light of reason. For a story, no matter how beautiful, must be illuminated from all sides. History is woven not only from legends, but from authentic evidence and the stern gaze of critical thought. We cannot ignore the reality that from the moment Nikola Notovich revealed his earth-shaking discovery in the late 19th century, a powerful wave of skepticism rose from Western scholars and the Church. In the mainstream flow of Christian history, those 18 silent years are viewed as a time when Jesus lived in seclusion, working and maturing in Nazareth, not embarking on a voyage of thousands of miles. Many brilliant researchers of that era, such as Professor Max Müller, a titan of Indology, frankly rejected Notovich's account. He suggested that the lamas at Hemis Monastery, perhaps out of hospitality or a linguistic misunderstanding, simply told the foreign guest what he yearned to hear. Harsher critics even claimed the entire manuscript of Saint Issa was merely a product of rich imagination, designed to fill historical voids with the mystical colors of the East. A crucial factor tilting the scales toward doubt is the absence of physical evidence in the modern age. Though explorers after Notovich claimed to see the manuscript, many others returned empty-handed. Today, if you were to journey to the remote lands of Ladakh and step into the ancient library of Hemis, you would no longer find the controversial scroll of yesteryear. it has vanished, or perhaps it never existed in the form we imagine. The lack of an original text leaves this hypothesis forever suspended in the twilight between historical fact and folklore. Yet, when the fog of archaeological debate lifts, a different light begins to glow, gentler and more profound. It is then we realize that determining whether Jesus truly set his bare feet upon Indian soil is perhaps less important than understanding the uncanny resonance between his thoughts and Eastern wisdom. Sometimes, spiritual truth carries a weight far greater than evidence carved in stone or written on parchment. Let us listen to the echo between the Sermon on the Mount and the compassionate philosophies of the Buddha. When Christ speaks of loving one's enemies, of relinquishing material desire, of humility and mercy, we hear the undertones of the Tao, of the liberation that enlightened masters of the East have taught since time immemorial. This resemblance does not necessarily prove that one learned from the other in the ordinary way of schooling. It proves something far greater, and that is the universality of truth. Perhaps Jesus never crossed the treacherous passes of the Hindu Kush. Perhaps he never sat in meditation by the Ganges. But this does not deny that his consciousness touched the same spring of wisdom that humanity has thirsted for since the dawn of time. Truth is like an underground river flowing deep within the earth. In the West, men dig wells and find water. In the East, men seek the source and find the very same stream. Water knows no borders, just as wisdom and compassion distinguish no religion or race. Therefore, the story of the lost years, whether historical fact or a beautiful parable, offers us a precious lesson. It reminds us that the barriers between cultures, between faiths, are in truth far more fragile than we imagine. Whether Jesus was a traveler on the Silk Road or simply a carpenter in Nazareth, his message of unconditional love remains a magnificent bridge, blending with the spirit of non-violence and the mindfulness of the East, creating an eternal symphony of the human soul. And that is the multidimensional profound truth we must contemplate this night. We have journeyed together across vast distances, from the scorching sands of the Middle East to the snow-capped peaks of the mystical Himalayas. The story of the lost years of Jesus, whether it is historical reality or merely a romantic hypothesis, has opened for us a contemplative space far vaster than the dry pages of history books. As the curtain falls on this mystery, what lingers in our minds is not a debate about geographical correctness, but the exquisite convergence of humanity's streams of wisdom. Perhaps the most crucial question is not whether the young Jesus truly set foot in India or Tibet. What matters more than anything is the uncanny resonance between his teachings on love and forgiveness and the Eastern path of compassion. Whether he learned from the sages by the banks of the Ganges or attained enlightenment alone in the Judean wilderness, the ultimate destination remains the awakening of human consciousness. In this light, the image of Jesus is no longer confined to a specific religion or nation, but becomes a symbol of the human capacity to rise above suffering and hatred, to touch the realm of inner peace. Let us imagine for a moment what we would see if we peeled away religious labels and erased national borders from the map. We would see that truth knows no boundaries. The compassion preached on the Sermon on the Mount is the very same mercy spoken of beneath the Bodhi tree. The surrendering of the selfish ego to merge with the whole, whether called the kingdom of heaven or nirvana, is psychologically the state of finding stillness and wholeness within the soul. The hypothesis of the Lord's journey to the east, therefore, acts as a bridge, reminding us that human wisdom, no matter which horizon it originates from, eventually meets at a single point, and that point is unconditional love. So do not lose yourself searching for the Messiah on geographical maps or in dusty archaeological ruins. Do not strive to prove whether he walked shod or barefoot on the cold Himalayan snow. Seek him, or rather, seek his qualities within the cartography of your own soul. Salvation does not come from a distant land, but from the moment you decide to forgive someone who has hurt you, or when you extend a hand to help a stranger without expecting anything in return. That is the moment when the Christ consciousness, or the Buddha nature, or the purest form of kindness is truly present within you. As we close tonight's story, let us settle our hearts with a gentle thought. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, yet the light it brings distinguishes no direction. It warms everyone equally. Truth is the same. It does not belong to the east or the west. It belongs to hearts that are open enough to receive it. I hope that wherever you are on your own journey, you will find peace and the guiding light right within your own heart. Wishing you a peaceful sleep and a soul as vast and open as the borderless sky.